Hey everybody, Coach Toolshed here. Today's video is not going to be discussing why every game developer in the world is mad at Ubisoft because they're trying to crowdsource 10 songs for the next Watch Dogs game. That is not the purpose of today's video. Today we're going to be discussing one of the hot topics over the last week or so. Once again, it's a slow news cycle, so it's time for all the gaming media to turn sights and focus directly on us evil gamers. And the question has been arisen, what is the purpose and how much should game developers listen to gamers? And there's been different comments from different developers. There's been another lovely article written from a games journalist, and we're going to discuss all that, not directly. I'm not going to discuss the quotes directly. I'm not going to break down the article word for word. There's been plenty of videos over the last week discussing the article and breaking down some of the points in there. That's not the point of what I'm doing here. I want to discuss the basic premise and the sheer stupidity behind the concept of not listening to your customers. And there's certainly been a common thrust behind a lot of these quotes we've seen from developers and from articles that we keep seeing spring up. It's not just the contentious one that we saw from last week. I've been noticing this more and more over the last few months. The notion that keeps getting pushed to the forefront is gamers aren't game developers, so therefore, why are we paying attention to them? Why are we listening to them? Why are we going to listen to them when they make complaints? And just the sheer lack of rational thinking when it comes to that. It's another example of the games industry themselves, the developers, the publishers, the games journalists, thinking that the games industry is somehow totally different from every other industry on the entire planet. And it's not. And that is the key problem that these companies and these talking heads keep forgetting. They're manufacturing a product for the public and trying to sell a product to that public. And the notion that with gaming is some special case where you can't listen to the customers unless they actually have experience doing that job is the utmost absurdity. And the quote that's been getting tossed around all week is the quote from Sean Murray. Well, gamers are really good at finding problems with the games, but they're not good at finding solutions. Yeah, why don't we extend this to literally any other product that you would buy? If I go and buy a car and I have a problem with the car and I take it to the mechanic doesn't start giving me a hard time and saying, you're not a mechanic, why am I going to listen to you? You think you have problems with the car? Why would you even think that? You're not a mechanic. They don't do that. They look at the car and they fix it. If you go out to eat and there's a problem with your meal, if it's undercooked, do you have to be a chef? Do you have to have gone to culinary school to say, hey, there's a problem with my meal, could you fix that? No, you don't. And if you do, they don't look at you and be like, you're not a chef, why are you complaining about the food that we served you? You're not a chef. No, they don't do that. They fix the food. And they replace it. And a lot of times, if you have a problem with a product that you've bought and you bring it back to them right after you bought it and you say, hey, I got this problem, not only will they fix it for free, a lot of times most businesses will give you some kind of voucher because they want to keep your business. They don't want the last thing you remember to be a bad taste in your mouth for their broken product. They don't want you going around telling other people about a bad experience you have. That happens all the time when it comes to businesses. But with video games, oh no. They literally will blame the customer for their own shortcomings. But this notion that it's some sort of shortcoming on the gamer. If a gamer contacts customer support and says, hey, my game's crashed 30 times in a week, what are you going to do about that? Why does the game developer look and be like, well, why aren't you giving me a solution for that? Why aren't you giving me a solution to the problem? Yeah, your game's crashing. Yeah, great, you found a problem. Great, what do you want me to do about it? Why don't you have a solution? Why would the customer have a solution? It doesn't make sense. People have jobs. They're specialists in different trades, different walks of life. That's how society works. Everyone has their own little thing that they do. And when they sell you a product, they're supposed to know how to service and fix the product. That's just how it works. I don't need to be a plumber to know that if I flush the toilet and water ends up all over the floor, that there's a problem with the plumbing. I call the plumber. He doesn't blame me for not being a plumber and not knowing how to fix the problem. Yet, this is the sheer stupidity of the games industry. Well, these gamers, I mean, they don't have solutions to the problems we created. And they act like this is some profound wisdom. They all pat themselves on the back. Yep, those gamers. They go around on Twitter patting themselves on the back, just like when the games journalists write their little articles and they pat each other on the back. This is some important journalism you're doing. Yep, This is some important work. Yep, stick to those entitled gamers. They're the worst. They're so entitled. They're so entitled. They buy a game and then, they just get mad if it doesn't work, or if it takes you 3 years to actually deliver on the product. I mean, they're so entitled. And then you get this article last week. It's just the latest in a string of articles we've seen over the years, constantly bemoaning the terrible gamer and how developers just shouldn't listen to gamers because we're compromising their artistic vision. Yes, that's right. It's the gamer's fault if there's a problem with the game, and if we dare complain about it, we're compromising their artistic vision. The sheer hypocrisy for games journalists to say stuff like this and then to go around and they all just have a great party on Twitter just congratulating themselves for the important journalisming that they're doing, discussing how awful gamers are. They seem to forget the fact that these games journalists have absolutely no problem making demands of game developers themselves. How come this game doesn't have easy mode? You're disrespecting your customer because this game doesn't have easy mode. It's not accessible for everyone. You have to provide easy mode. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're not catering to the customer. Oh, this game doesn't have the politics I want. Far Cry 5 didn't have the politics that I wanted, so I'm going to get mad at Ubisoft for that and demand that they be more political in their next game. Oh, we're mad at Kingdom Come Deliverance because it didn't have the proper demographics that we wanted in the cast because it was depicting a certain time in history. But we're mad about that, so we're not even going to cover this game. We're not going to review it. We're going to boycott this game altogether because we disagree with it. And on and on and on. It doesn't matter what it is. Games journalists make demands of game developers all the time. And they think they're totally justified. Newsflash. To every games journalist who writes articles or who agrees with articles saying that game developers shouldn't listen to gamers because they aren't game developers, journalists, I hate to break this to you, you're also not game developers. Did you miss that? Seems like you might have missed that. You aren't a developer either. Interviewing game developers doesn't make you a game developer. It doesn't teach you to code. Talking to people, having friends that do the job, isn't the same as doing the job or having inside knowledge of anything. You just know someone that does the job. So you also aren't a game developer. You don't have any special knowledge. You may think you do, but you really don't. You're a journalist. For that matter, how's this? I don't want to hear any more journalists commenting about YouTubers unless they also make content on YouTube. You don't know how to edit. Do you edit videos? Do you know how to do thumbnails? Do you know how to do the audio and everything else? No. Well, then I don't want to hear you commenting on it. That's the logic we're using, games journalists and games developers who agree with that logic. If that's the logic we want to use, then like I said, next time you go out to eat, let me ask this. How many of these games journalists have ever written a Yelp review for a restaurant if they didn't like the food? And like the earlier example I used, did they go to culinary school? No. Do they know how to prepare a 5-star meal? No, I'm sure they don't. But would that stop them from complaining about the food if it wasn't good? No, it wouldn't. But this, you see how stupid the logic is here? When it comes to thinking that your customers who paid for a product don't have the right or shouldn't complain, or if they do complain, you should just ignore them altogether and not listen to their feedback. It's mind-numbingly stupid to suggest it. And that's just the fact of the matter. And anyone who goes along with it be like, yeah, those stupid gamers, why should anyone listen to them? I'm not saying you should take every single thing that every single gamer suggests and try to cram it into the game. Obviously, that's stupid. I'm not saying that. There's going to be bad suggestions. But the notion isn't, oh, let's take the good suggestions and we'll sort of sift through it. No, that's not what we've been hearing lately. Lately, it's been an all or nothing approach. Like, we just shouldn't listen to gamers. They don't know what they're talking about. Simply because they don't have a job in the industry, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And then the argument that you hear is, well, gamers are just, they complain more than people would normally complain about other products. Do you have any sort of facts or statistics to back that up? I don't think you do. Because if you go on to any product review site, if you go, in this day and age, you can go and find a review for literally anything. Any product, an app, software, hardware, tools, anything. You can find reviews for it. And what you'll find in those reviews is that no one, anywhere, for any other industry, holds back when it comes to making complaints. Customers complain no matter what. There's always going to be customer complaints. The games industry is not special. They are just another business industry selling us a manufactured product. The people making the products aren't special beings sent down from the heavens above to bestow their blessings upon us. They're creating and selling us a product. We need to stop worshiping game developers. Games journalists need to stop thinking that they're somehow different or special compared to other gamers. Newsflash, guys, you're not. You don't make games either. And for that matter, there's also a good contingent of you that really just can't even play games at all. You're just terrible at the games. But you sit there and want to pontificate and act like journalists should have a say. Because like I said, you guys seem to have no problems whatsoever yelling at game developers as a group whenever you're upset about something. But if the millions of people who are upset about something, if they complain, well, they're just idiots. But if the 100 or so, maybe 1,000, how many people do you think there are working as professional games journalists? I don't even know. 1,000, 2,000 ones that work for the conglomerate sites, who knows? But it's minuscule compared to the overall gaming population, is my point. Yet that small contingent of people, mainly based in Southern California, seem to think that their demands are totally fine and acceptable because they cover the industry. But say people that cover it on YouTube, people who do it independently, their opinions don't matter. Gamers who go onto forums, people who play the games every single day, people who put hundreds and thousands of hours into these games, their opinions don't matter either. But if you're a games journalist, yes, it does. And the game developers seem to agree with this, is the biggest ridiculous thing about it. Game developers are going right along with this. Yeah, screw the customers. Why should we pay attention to them? And you see this sentiment more and more and more. And are gamers combative? Yep, they are. And I can't blame a single gamer for being combative because there is not a single other consumer industry on the planet that treats their customers as poorly as the games industry treats their players. That's just a fact. Now sure, there's some service-based industries where people might have more consumer complaints. That's true. Whether it be something like health insurance or maybe a cable provider, that's true. But when it comes to consumer manufactured products where someone is actively trying to sell the public a product, there is no other consumer base that gets actively attacked by the people trying to sell them products. Whether it be in the press or on Twitter, what other industry has their rank and file employees go onto Twitter and attack the people that they're trying to sell products to, and those employees, like, nothing happens to them? It's totally fine. And then, once in a while, if a developer actually gets fired for going over the line and insulting the customers, the media's just like, oh, clutching pearls, someone got fired for attack. Yeah, because you're not supposed to go after your customers. Give me a break. If a waitress started going off on a customer in the middle of the restaurant, guess what? They fire the waitress. Because you can't just start screaming at customers. But in the games industry, it's all fine. And the media will protect you. If you end up actually getting fired, they will try to rally around you and say that it's just a travesty. No. Games industry and games journalists, wake up. The people buying the games are the customers. You're supposed to be appeasing them. At the very least, make it seem like you care. But no, it's getting more and more blatant now. Now they're coming right out and saying, yeah, We don't need to listen to you. You see it more and more all the time. This sentiment is just being pushed harder and harder by both journalists and developers. You see it all the time. And like I said, I can't think of a single other consumer product where I see en masse the people who make the product going out and attacking the people who they want to buy it. It's absurd. Anyway, this has gone on long enough. I'm Coach Toolshed. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Please subscribe if you want to stay in tune with the channel headed forward. And as always, keep it turned to 11.